In the heart of Mosswood Hollow, nestled beneath a patchwork canopy of silverleaf trees and honeybark maples, stood a crooked little tea shop shaped like a teapot. Its chimney curled like a question mark, puffs of chamomile-scented steam wafting from the spout. A hand-painted sign hung above the mushroom stone door. Open sunrise to starlight. All species welcome. No curses, no biting. The owner of this peculiar shop was a gnome named Brimble Nibblewick, a being so clumsy he once tripped over his own beard. Twice. In 1 minute. Brimble's beard was russet orange and perpetually tangled with herb snippets, tea leaves, and the occasional sugar cube. His spectacles were cracked, held together by a dab of honey. His apron read, "I drink, therefore I spill," a gift from his one friend, Tansy, a sarcastic dryad who ran the apothecary next door. At dawn, the shop creaked to life as Brimble tiptoed down his spiral staircase, arms full of teacups. "All right, mugs, let's not jump to your deaths today," he whispered, inching along. As usual, fate had other plans. One cup, named Pearline, leapt from his grasp with a dramatic pirouette. Clink. Pearline. Traitor. He sighed and flicked his fingers. The shards fluttered like butterflies, reassembling midair with a sparkle of golden magic. "One day, I'll open a mugless bar," he muttered, placing her on the counter. Brimble flicked open the shutters. Light spilled into the shop, revealing shelves of colorful tins, moon mint, grumble gray, spry petal, fawnshine. Glass jars clinked with dried leaves, root shavings, and shimmering sugar stars. A tiny bell above the door jingled as his enchanted kettle, Sir Boilington, hummed to life on the stove. "Boil, dear chap," Brimble said. "Let's cure heartbreak, insomnia, and probably a troll hangover today." Sir Boilington whistled and glowed warm blue. Brimble opened the day's delivery box. Carefully, since last week's shipment had included a volatile box of sneeze leaf. To his surprise, it held a single scroll tied with a cinnamon stick and sealed with wax in the shape of a butterfly. He peeled it open with a suspicious sniff. "To the brewer of bliss. I seek your help. I require the rarest tea you can brew, one that can calm the mind of a mad king. Come to the old throne wood at midnight. Bring no one. No name?" Brimble murmured, twisting the scroll in his fingers. "What kind of loon asks for tea in the middle of a cursed forest?" Sir Boilington hissed ominously. The tea tins on the shelves rattled. Brimble, naturally, dropped the scroll into a jar of lemon balm. Later that day, as twilight seeped across the mossy town, Brimble stared at the invitation while chewing nervously on a licorice root. "A tea to calm a mad king," he said, pacing between his herb shelves. "Not a sleepy king. Not a slightly grumpy king. A mad one. Mad like, talking to his shoes mad." Tansy appeared at the shop door, arms crossed, hair a tangle of ivy and gold vine. "You're muttering to the basil again. You know that's not normal." Brimble jumped. "Tansy. Excellent timing. Say, what do you know about mind-soothing teas?" She raised an eyebrow. "You mean besides the 100 I already sold you?" He handed her the scroll. She scanned it. Her bark-brown eyes narrowed. "The old throne wood? That place is crawling with old spells. You go wandering there and you'll end up speaking in beetle for a week." "I'll bring translation tea," Brimble said too quickly. "Brimble." "Yes?" "You're not going alone." "I was told to." "Then take a smarter version of yourself." "So, me." Brimble hesitated, then tripped over his own shoelace and fell into a bucket of dried lavender. As he sat up, sneezing purple clouds, he mumbled, "Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when a raccoon tries to crown you empress." Tansy smirked. "Please. I'd make a fabulous empress." They left at moonrise, Brimble with a satchel of ingredients, Tansy with a walking stick carved from elderwood and wound with silver thread. The forest met them in silence. Old Thronewood wasn't on any map. It grew where it pleased, where magic was thickest. Trees leaned with age and memory, their trunks carved with glyphs no one dared translate. The path squelched underfoot with mushroom loam and scattered petals. At the edge of a sunken clearing, they found the remains of what once was a throne, rotted vines twisted around broken stone, and behind it, an archway of woven branches pulsing with pale green light. A hooded figure stepped from the shadows. Short, slender, and holding a teacup. Brewer of Bliss, the voice was soft. "Thank you for coming." Brimble stepped forward, heart thudding. "You didn't mention a portal." The figure removed their hood. A fae. Not the glittery kind that danced in flowers, but an ancient fae, with moss-colored skin and eyes like boiling emeralds. "The king I speak of does not dwell here," they said. "He sleeps beyond the branches. And soon, he will wake." Brimble's knees knocked. "You don't mean the Mad King of Thorns? And you must brew the only tea that can save him, and all of us." Brimble dropped his satchel. It spilled open, revealing herbs, measuring spoons, and a jar labeled "Oops Mix." Tansy leaned in. "No pressure, Brim." Brimble stared at the ancient fae, then down at his spilled herbs. A dried raspberry leaf fluttered onto his boot. He didn't dare touch it. "The Mad King of Thorns," he croaked. "The one who turned an entire orchard into a screaming choir?" The fae nodded once. "And you want me to serve him tea?" The fae smiled. Not warmly. Tansy crossed her arms. "You sure this isn't a prank? Huh, make the gnome save a crazy king with a cup of chamomile?" The fae ignored her. "He sleeps beneath the roots of this forest. When he wakes, he will either remember who he was, or unleash a curse that has waited 100 years to bloom." Brimble picked up his satchel with shaking hands. "All right," he muttered. "All right, yes. Of course. I mean, why not try to fix an ancient fae tyrant with a beverage?" The fae tilted their head. "Do you know the blend called Eversoothe?" Brimble froze. Tansy blinked. "That's a legend. It's not real." The fae turned toward the arch of woven branches. "Then I hope your imagination is very good, gnome. Because you'll need to make it." With that, they vanished into mist, leaving Brimble and Tansy alone in the clearing. Sir Boilington, tucked inside Brimble's satchel, hissed softly. Back at the tea shop, Brimble locked the door, flipped the sign to "Closed for Apocalypse Prep," and dragged out his forbidden recipe book. Brimble's book of bad ideas, a tea brewer's confessions, was scrawled across the cover in soot ink. He'd written it during his brief exile from Gnome Culinary College, when he'd accidentally caffeinated an entire dormitory into insomnia for 3 days. He flipped past Sleepy Bramble Brew, which caused vivid dreams of pickles, anti-faint steep, illegal in 3 counties, and singing nettle chop, banned for public use due to the spontaneous musical numbers. Finally, he reached a page marked only with a skull, a crown, and a teacup. Eversoothe. For minds fractured, cursed, or unstitched. Must be brewed with intent. Do not speak while steeping. Do not fear the leaves. Do not let the steam touch your dreams. Brimble looked at Tansy, whose mouth had gone thin as a paper cut. "This isn't tea," she whispered. "This is madness in a cup." "Yes," Brimble said, voice hollow. "But apparently I'm the brewer who brews bliss." It took 3 days to gather the ingredients. Each was rarer, and weirder, than the last. First was Luna leaf, harvested only during a lunar eclipse. Tansy managed to charm a moonbat into coughing up a few petals in exchange for a sonnet and half a biscuit. Second came echo bark, which required them to convince an ancient tree to shed one syllable of its memory. Brimble offered it a cup of peppermint regret. It wept sap and granted him a sliver. Third was the hardest, mirror mint, a plant that only grew in the reflection of another. Brimble had to hang upside down over a silent lake while whispering compliments to a patch of ghost time until the mint sprouted from thin air. They returned to the shop exhausted, tea-stained, and lightly cursed. Sir Boilington was already steaming with anticipation. Tansy set the ingredients on the counter, glancing at Brimble. "Ready?" "No." "Good. That's how you know you're doing something important." Brimble took a deep breath. He placed the Luna leaf first, murmuring, "For clarity." Then the echo bark, "For memory." Then mirror mint, "For stillness." He poured water from Sir Boilington, who glowed soft gold. Steam rose. Silent. Coiling. The shop shivered. The light flickered. And then, someone banged on the door. Brimble flinched. "I said no customers." The door flew open. A small, red-haired goblin in a powdered waistcoat burst in, panting. "You can't serve that tea," he shrieked. "Don't give it to the Mad King. You'll doom us all." Brimble dropped the honey spoon. Tansy narrowed her eyes. "Oh stars. Not him." Brimble turned slowly. "You know this, goblin?" The goblin pointed at Brimble with a trembling claw. "He doesn't know what he's done. That tea doesn't soothe, it seals. And once it seals the king's mind, it'll trap all of us inside it." The room went quiet, so quiet even the steam seemed to pause mid-spiral. Brimble blinked. "I'm sorry, what do you mean it'll trap all of us?" The goblin didn't answer right away. Instead, he rushed forward, pulling a satchel from beneath his cloak and spilling out a collection of faded scrolls, chipped crystal orbs, and what looked suspiciously like a lizard wearing a monocle. Tansy groaned. "Ugh. Dibbins the Doom Crier. I thought you got banned from Mosswood for screaming about sentient soup." Dibbins ignored her. He held up one scroll with shaking fingers. "Here. Look, this is from the Codex of Echo Binding. Eversoothe isn't just a healing brew. It's a ritual. The ingredients don't just calm, they capture. Mind, memory, magic. Everything around the drinker." He turned to Brimble, sweat beading along his forehead. "That's why it hasn't been made in 100 years. Because the last time it was brewed, it froze the King of Thorns mid-rampage. The tea sealed his madness, and part of the world, in his dreaming mind. That's why he sleeps." Brimble sat down hard on a stool. "So, if we serve it again, it'll complete the seal," Dibbins said. "And anything near him, anyone, will get bound into the dream with him." Tansy stared at the kettle, where Sir Boilington trembled slightly. "That doesn't sound like bliss. That sounds like bliss weaponized." Dibbins nodded, eyes wide. "You'll disappear. Maybe forever. Mosswood might follow." Brimble's stomach twisted. But what if that's the only way to stop him from waking?" Silence. Dibbins sat on the counter, shoulders sagging. "Then you'll be heroes. Just, the kind no one remembers." It was dusk again when Brimble, Tansy, and a very unwilling Dibbins returned to the old throne wood. The trees creaked as though remembering something they wanted to forget. Brimble carried the tea in a sealed glass globe, its golden liquid swirling like starlight. Sir Boilington rattled inside his pack, whispering warmth into the brew to keep it stable. The closer they got to the arch of woven branches, the colder it became. The fey figure was waiting. "You have the tea?" they asked. Brimble held it up, heart pounding. "I do. But I need to know, what happens to us?" The fey's face remained unreadable. "You step beyond the branches. You serve the king. What follows, is what he dreams. Tansy growled. You knew. You knew it could trap us. The Fae nodded once. I also know that if he wakes unchecked, the dream unravels. So choose, be dreamt, or be destroyed. Dibbons whimpered. I vote destroyed. Quick, simple. Brimble looked at the glass globe, then at Tansy, who met his gaze without flinching. I'm not letting you go alone, she said. I'd trip anyway, he whispered. He stepped forward. As soon as his foot crossed the threshold of the woven arch, the world melted. Brimble blinked. He was standing in a tea shop. His tea shop. Except the walls were made of glass, and the sky above was an endless swirl of deep purple clouds. Teapots floated past the windows like jellyfish. Ah, said a voice behind him, the brewer arrives. Brimble turned, and stared. The King of Thorns was neither tall nor terrifying. He was a wiry man with bark-colored skin, antlers twisted with silver wire, and eyes like endless mirrors. He sat at a table in the center of the shop, wearing a crown of ivy. A cracked teacup trembled in his fingers. I've waited for this, he said. For you. Brimble's voice cracked. You know me? The king smiled. In dreams, everyone knows everyone. Tansy and Dibbons appeared beside Brimble, blinking in confusion. They looked, stretched, shimmering at the edges. The king stood. I am fractured, he said softly. Pieces of me scattered. Memory, power, guilt, joy. Eversoothe can bring me back, but it will cost. Tea is never free. Brimble stepped forward, heart thudding. Then let's have a cup. He uncorked the globe. The golden brew shimmered, singing without sound. As the king drank, the shop began to dissolve. The mirrors in his eyes cracked. The crown fell. And the dream fell with him. When Brimble woke, he was lying in the mossy clearing. Dawn was breaking. Tansy groaned beside him. Tell me we're not tea leaves now. Brimble sat up. The arch was gone. So was the Fae. Dibbons was humming softly, curled into a patch of mushrooms. We lived, he murmured. Either that or we're ghost tea. Sir Boilington let out a triumphant whistle. Brimble stood slowly. Something felt different. Lighter. As if a storm had passed. And then, from behind the trees, came a sound, hooves. The King of Thorns emerged, real now, not dream. His crown was gone. He wore a simple robe of moss and root, and his eyes were clear. Brewer, he said quietly. You brewed bliss. Brimble nodded. I remember, the king whispered. Everything. And I am sorry. Tansy crossed her arms. You gonna try and thornify anyone? The king smiled faintly. No. I think it's time I learned to be human again. Brimble blinked. With tea? The king nodded. With tea. The King of Thorns walked among them like someone waking from centuries of sleep, which, in truth, he was. Every step seemed tentative, as though unsure whether the earth would still hold his weight. He touched the trunk of a silverleaf tree with reverence, his fingertips brushing moss as if greeting an old friend. Brimble, on the other hand, walked with the gait of someone who had survived magical doom and still hadn't had breakfast. His beard was full of dream dust, and a small mushroom had taken root on his boot. I need a cup of sanity, he muttered, patting Sir Boilington, who gave a proud little hiss in return. Tansy matched his pace. So, you saved the world with tea. How's that feel? Sticky, he said. And terrifying. And like I need to write a new rule for the shop. Oh. He grinned faintly. No Fae requests without a deposit. Behind them, Dibbons was dancing in a circle, shouting, I survived. I'm going to write a pamphlet, to no one in particular. They returned to Mosswood Hollow as the sky bloomed orange and gold. The crooked teapot shop stood waiting, a little more weathered, perhaps, but just as welcoming. The bell above the door jingled as Brimble stepped inside. He inhaled deeply. Chamomile, cinnamon, lemon balm, and something warm and ancient lingered in the air. I never thought I'd be happy to see this weird little place again, he said. Tansy raised an eyebrow. You thinking of reopening? Brimble didn't answer right away. He moved behind the counter, brushing dream dust off his tins and sorting mugs into place. Pearline wobbled in greeting. Sir Boilington whistled a soft tune. He turned to Tansy. We never closed. Word of Brimble's tea spread far and wide, not just in Mosswood, but through the entire realm. Stories were told of a gnome who brewed peace into a tyrant's heart, of a dryad who kept his wits grounded, and of a goblin who panicked just enough to save the day. The King of Thorns. No longer a king, simply Thorn now, took up residence in a quiet grove at the edge of the forest. He became a student of plants and peace, visiting the shop each week to try a new blend. My mind feels like a cracked cup, he confessed once, sipping something Brimble called Gentlemint Glee. Brimble refilled his cup. Then we just pour carefully. Others followed. A banshee sought tea to soften her voice. A dragon, recently retired, wanted something to help him sleep through the century. Even the town council, known for shouting matches about sidewalk widths, began ordering pots of harmony hibiscus during meetings. And Brimble? He became more careful. But no less clumsy. He still tripped over his beard. He still broke mugs. But now, he broke them with pride. Oops, he'd say with a grin, as shards reassembled in midair. Another masterpiece in progress. Tansy became his business partner, designing new blends and charming the more unruly customers. Dibbons appointed himself official lorekeeper, though most of his scrolls contained more dramatic flourishes than facts. The shop itself changed, too. It seemed brighter. The crooked teapot leaned a little less. The bell rang a little sweeter. Magic, once a curious undercurrent, now sang in the walls. Bliss, teas for the troubled, became more than a place. It became a sanctuary. Years passed. The story of the Mad King faded into the mist of legend. But the shop remained. One rainy afternoon, Brimble sat alone by the window, sipping a brew he'd never written down. It tasted like quiet. Like the moment before dawn. Like possibility. He stared out at the path where so many strangers had walked in, broken in one way or another, and walked out a little more whole. Tansy entered, wiping flour from her hands. Experimenting again? She asked. Brimble nodded. It's called memory mist. You want to try? She took the cup, sipped, and smiled. Tastes like the first time I called you a disaster. Brimble beamed. A sentimental disaster, though. She set the cup down. We've brewed a lot of strange things in this shop. He looked out the window again. We haven't brewed everything. Just then, the bell chimed. A young fey woman stepped inside, soaked from the rain. Her eyes were full of stormlight, and her hands trembled as she held out a scroll. I was told you help people, she said softly. Brimble nodded. We do. What's troubling you? She bit her lip. I need a tea that can help someone who doesn't believe in magic anymore. Brimble stood. Well, he said, you've come to the right place. Some say magic lives in mountains, or in forgotten ruins, or deep beneath the sea. But others, those who've tasted the right brew at the right time, know that sometimes, it lives in a crooked little tea shop shaped like a teapot. And in the hands of a clumsy gnome who brews bliss, one cup at a time.